Hi, this is Claudia Filos with the Center for Hellenic Studies, and this is HeroesX Office Hours. I'm joined today by Professor Gregory Nagy and by Keith Stone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you, Claudia. And this time I really am in my office.
You are, which is so lovely. It's great to see you here. Keith is joining us from a little bit further away today, so that's fine. So we're joining via Google Hangout. Let's get right to it today.
Yes.
We have some beautiful discussion questions you asked, Greg, and I'm going to bring them up for us. So the first discussion question was hour 20, and you were basically asking about how Hippolytus is avoiding Aphrodite, but the way he speaks to Artemis could perhaps be pleasing to a goddess such as Aphrodite.
Yes.
You asked our participants, did they agree or disagree with this, and why? And pretty much everyone agrees that there's something interesting going on there with the way that he's speaking. Can you talk a little bit about why you thought about this question?
Well, in a way, it goes back to something that you, dear Claudia, and you, dear Keith, have been doing with me ever since Valentine's Day 2015, not 2016, so well over a year now, where the three of us were talking about something that I didn't quite express well in the ancient Greek hero on 24 Hours, which is the relationship of Aphrodite and Artemis to each other. And so in the posting that we have for that February in 2015, I grapple with the idea that actually Artemis and Aphrodite, if you shoot them back 500 years, could be one goddess with two different functions. And in that sense, what Hippolytus does is perfectly okay, even for Artemis. The work of Douglas Frame and other researchers has shown me, at least, that goddesses who, in the 5th century, the era of Euripides, goddesses who seem to be virgins only, if you reconstruct them farther back, we're cycling back and forth from virgin to mother, back to virgin, back to mother, eternally, year after year, at the right season. And so in a sense, the prayer is perfectly okay. The prayer that Hippolytus is uttering to Artemis at the beginning. It's just that Artemis has become too specialized, and for that matter, the hero himself is too specialized to be able to do it right.
You know, what's interesting is that Companion Anne, one of our participants, points out in one of her comments that Artemis is very passionate, but perhaps not sexually, at least towards men. She points to myths about Artemis sort of getting very friendly with nymphs, right?
Yes.
And even just the fact that there's a myth about her blinding a male who caught sight of her while she was naked. I mean, that in itself still speaks to her sexuality.
Oh, yes. And then in some parts of the Greek-speaking world, as in Ephesus, she's actually represented as a mother goddess with multiple breasts.
Can you define multiple? What do you mean by that?
Well, you look at the famous statue of Artemis of Ephesus, and there's more than one version of it, and her entire front is a collection of breasts.
Oh wow! Okay.
This is her definitely motherly role, which is played down in the myth ritual systems of most city-states by the time of Euripides. But as I say, you still see leftovers of the older kind of Artemis.
Greg, can I ask just very quickly about the word aidōs, and maybe in just 2 minutes? Do I understand correctly? I thought I had read somewhere, and I think it was a CHS author, who talked about the fact that aidōs, which is a word that's often translated as modesty, has to do with sort of showing yourself when you're supposed to show yourself and not showing yourself when you're not supposed to show. So it goes both ways, right? Even that term.
Absolutely, and I think the closest thing to aidōs in American popular culture is Aretha Franklin's R-E-S-P-C-T-E. Have I got the spelling R-E-S-P?
E-C-T. E-C-T.
E-E-C-T. Yes,
Yeah,
I had
yeah,
it right. I didn't have it right. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. That's it.
yeah. Okay, great. Well, we'll think about that actually. Let's think about that as a community. But let's get on to the next question, which is the Hour 21 discussion question, in which you asked us to consider a sense of moderation in the
Yes.
Bacchae. So what you say are, what are the women? What about the women of Thebes when they go to the mountains and are seen there by the messenger, who then describes to Pentheus what he has seen? Are these devotees of Dionysus moderate in any way? Do you want to walk us through that question and sort of why you think this is an important topic?
That's another question that shows me agonizing over things that I've already said in the past for the record, and where I say, I don't regret what I said, but there are other aspects to it. Now, I used to say, and I used to content myself with saying this, that the chorus of the Bacchae of Euripides are a representation of how, when you worship Dionysus, aka Bacchus, in the ritual world of the present, you are actually being moderate. This is the moderate side of Dionysus, aka Bacchus. Whereas people who do it in myth get it wrong. And it's not just the mother of Pentheus and Pentheus's two aunts who get it wrong, but in a sense, all the women of Thebes back then in mythical time get it wrong. So they are having, if I can put it this way, a bad experience. It's because myth and ritual don't mix well in the mythical past, whereas people who worship Dionysus now, and that's what the chorus is, because the chorus are not just the followers of Dionysus back in the action, they're also mediating with us, the citizens of Athens. So in that sense, they are devotees of Dionysus today, and they show by way of their singing and dancing how to do it right in worshiping Dionysus. The singers and dancers of the chorus of the Bacchae are perfectly well-behaved devotees of Dionysus. They don't do anything extreme, but they certainly sing and dance about the extremes of the mythical past. So, fine. But then it bothered me that when the messenger talks about the devotees of Dionysus back when, and I mean the women of Thebes, that when he first spies them, in other words, when he first takes a sneaky look at them, they're not yet being extreme. They're sleeping, or they seem to be doing things that promote the fertility of the earth. There's nothing really violent about what they do when you first see them. But then, as soon as they spot a non-initiated person, an outsider, then all hell breaks loose, doesn't it? And next thing you know, they're ripping cattle apart, and they're doing all sorts of things that you associate with how the devotees of Bacchus in myth don't get it right and are very extreme and get it all wrong, whereas we in ritual today get it all right. So I guess my question was a meditation of my own trying to sort out whether there's any moment, even in the mythical past, where being under the influence of Dionysus is not yet disruptive. And I think there is that moment. Maybe it's just a kind of momentary thing, but you can see, I think, the orderly way of worshiping Dionysus in some contexts, and that's what I was exploring with my fellow readers, is whether they got a sense of a kind of violent shift in mood in the mythical past.
Yeah. Keith, did you have a thought?
No, just agreeing with that beautiful
Yeah,
statement.
exactly. And I think the readings of our participants actually show that they had gotten that, right? I mean, Ken P, for instance, starts off saying, everything starts off pretty peacefully when the shepherd is there. And it's not until he's seen that everything goes,
And I
wrong.
love the name of that respondent. It's TEMPE, right? Or
KENPPY.
Well, okay, I'm projecting my wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I was already thinking of a peaceful valley and the name for that, but
lovely.
Just
Okay,
lovely. That would be wrong, Constant. Sorry, Kempi.
No, that's fine. So, this actually brings me to another question I thought we might touch on that was brought up. I think it may have been Jillian Kiriakou. Let me just double check. Yeah, is wondering about why.
She's such a wonderful contributor, time and again.
Exactly. Her question is, why is Thebes? A very simple observation. Why does Thebes seem to be the setting for tragedies? Is there some historical and mythical reason? So is it that the people of Thebes get it wrong and that the people of Athens get it right? I think
if you're neighbors, you're going to depict your neighbors as getting it wrong all the time, and you as getting it right. If I could just say that.
I think Keith has nailed the answer when it comes to the way 5th century Athenians think of it, okay?
Uh-huh.
I think you're absolutely right, dear Keith. If, however, you're a 6th century Athenian, it's a little bit different because in the 6th century, as I look at the politics of the people who were primarily credited with the invention of tragedy, if I can put it that way, and that's the Physistratidae, who are retroactively described as tyrants by the democratic regime. Of course, democratic regime would describe any predecessor as tyrannical versus what they are. That's fine. But without being an apologist for the Pisistratids or the Physistratidae, I think everybody will admit today that it was that leadership that initiated tragedy in Athens. And here's the kicker. Back in the 6th century, the traditions of tragedy came mostly from Thebes. And here's another kicker. Back then, the city of Thebes and the city of Athens were getting along pretty well, at least in the administration of the Physistratidae. Later on, and this is no big surprise because rivalries can bubble up at any time, later on, Thebes became the mortal enemy. So going back, I'm looping back now to what Keith said earlier. I think Keith is absolutely right that Thebes would be the counter city, the anti-city, as far as Athens in the 5th century is concerned. And so it's wonderful to be able to see everybody messing up on everything when it comes to Thebes, and then how we in Athens get it right. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we can put on a theater where the devotees of Dionysus in our theater, who are the chorus or the singing and dancing ensemble, the fact that they're beautiful, they dance and sing beautifully, they have the right attitude about Dionysus being a god about balance, not about imbalance, shows you that Athens is the place to be for correct ritual, and Thebes is just dysfunctional. We don't even think about their rituals, but certainly their myths are messed up, and myths tend to show the heroic world being messed up about things like that anyway. By things like that, I mean the relationship of gods and humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many we've read kind of come to a resolution in Athens, I'm thinking now. Not just this one, like the, let me see, the Sophocles things. Aeschylus, the Oresteia also ends up with a resolution in Athens.
Yeah.
Even the Odyssey, I'm thinking there's something Athenian about the end.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Because,
At least the role of Athena as judge is perfectly parallel to her role at the end of the Oresteia.
I think Keith has nailed it again, because at the end of the Odyssey, in Odyssey 24, when Athena says this blood feud must stop, for a moment we think we're at the end of the Oresteia trilogy, where in the Eumenides, Athena says this feuding must stop, or this, shall we say, internalized family dysfunctionality must stop, however you want to say it. But that's exactly right. And I think Keith's example of the so-called Oresteia trilogy, where you, after all, start in Argos, and then you continue in Argos in the second tragedy, but then you wind up in Athens via Delphi in the third tragedy. Wow, that's where the synthesis is going to happen, where rituals start really working the way they should work, and where, going back to the Bacchae, the worshippers of Dionysus are worshiping in a moderate way a moderate god, a god of moderation, a god who stands for balance, not imbalance. Imbalance happens only when you engage with the god in the wrong way, and then if you try a ritual in the mythical past, it's going to fail.
Since we're talking a little bit about the Odyssey and thinking about Homeric epic, can we turn to one of the questions in the discussion board that's asking about sort of a shift in mentality? I just want to bring up the thread. So, where is it? A change in mentality by Nagy5 is talking about, they see an interesting change in mentality in Greek people, or at least in Athens, having passed from the physical hero such as Achilles to a mental one such as Oedipus, who has deformed feet. And so then they go on to talk about sort of the relationship between those kind of heroic characteristics. Can you talk a little bit about the physicality, change in ideas about the physicality of what's heroic, and that change in mentality, and maybe as we think about Plato, is that something we want to think about going forward?
You know, I think Keith would be a really good person to start the conversation on this, because Keith and I have, in a classroom situation, dealt with this. How many times? 6 years, or?
I think it's about 6 times.
Yeah, that's it. So I counted right, and then more recently with you, dear Claudia, you've seen the kind of shift that happens in the intellectual mood of our readers when they go from what we call epic to what we call tragedy. Our first impression, oh, these are different people. Our second impression, these are the same people, but a different lens looking at the same people. Tragedy is a different lens. And so I'm not sure that we can make distinctions between physical hero and mental hero, for example, as we go from the Odyssey to what we're thinking about right now, which is the Bacchae. What if it's not the hero that's changed? It's the camera lens that has changed, and now there's a greater emphasis on things that haven't been explored by the medium of epic. Tragedy has a way of uncovering things that epic keeps covered.
So then would you say that there's something maybe that's part of the hero that is deformed and that is unattractive? Because we've been thinking about the hero as beautiful, right? We're thinking about the beautiful death, about the beautiful corpse.
I like that. I think you're onto it, Claudia, that epic tends to screen out what's ugly, and then even to concentrate the view of the ugly into one personality, and that's Thersites. Or if I want to think about humans who are deformed, I really have to think long and hard, especially in the Iliad, to find any. You can make different kinds of arguments in the Odyssey, but when it comes to just plain ugliness, it's only Thersites in the Iliad. And as for the Odyssey, even the suitors are really good-looking, dashing young men. So it's not the exteriority that's the problem. Okay, enough of the Homeric tradition. The tragic tradition, yes. You're gonna take down those filters. I think of filmmakers like Kieślowski who use sometimes golden filters in their camera to give everything a special glow. Well, the filter's off here, and somebody like Oedipus, at least you can sense the deformity that is there, even if it's interiorized as well as exteriorized, but the deformity is definitely there, and the way it is not in, or would not be, in the Homeric tradition, in the epic tradition that has come down to us.
What do you think, Keith? Do you have any reactions to that, or as you think about working with students in the past, how they've dealt with this question?
I don't know that it's come up, this specific question, but I'm thinking about the selection of characters, for in the tragedies, and I'm not sure I want to build an argument about evolution of heroes or types of heroes on that, because there are so many tragedies that we don't have. We know that there were many, many more, and we have just a small fraction of them.
Wise
I don't
word.
know that I've ever heard of a tragedy about Odysseus or Achilles. Probably the definitive statement on those characters was there weren't going to be any tragedies about them. No, Greg would know much better than I would.
No. I think you're onto something, that even the selection, that's what you're emphasizing. Even the selection of heroes tends to give a freer range in what can sneak up on you and happen that you wouldn't necessarily expect in epic. One thing that I was thinking about only this year, never thought about it before, but think of the fact that, okay, there's a lot of blood and guts in the Iliad, right? And there's so many ways that people die that you're left stunned by the end of by all the suffering. But isn't it interesting how many people are wounded and get to live with a deformity? They don't. And we know that real war produces, and that's what's one of the things that's so, and I mean it, tragic about war, is that it leaves the participants in war in so many cases quote unquote deformed, that when society looks at them and say, ooh, I don't want to go near this person because look at the terrible wound, or look at the terrible disability. And you don't have disabled warriors in the Iliad. You just don't. They either live or die, and wounds are very temporary, and they're all sort of band-aided away by almost divine intervention.
Yeah.
So it's death or no death. Whereas in the tragedies, you have people who are really suffering from wounds inflicted by violence.
Philoctetes, right?
Philoctetes is a beautiful example, and the list can just go on and on. Or mental illness.
Super interesting. Yes, super interesting. Yes.
And things that disturb us and that make us want to run away, which is what Aristotle says is one of the basic features of tragedy, is that when you see a human suffering, you either can't stand looking at it and you run away, or you can't stand not doing something, so you move towards the suffering and try to help. I'm trying to say things in a visceral way, but if you want to give words to it, fear and pity. Fear is when you run away from suffering, and pity is when you when you make the decision, the moral decision that you want to help the sufferer.
Keith, you know what? Can you, I know we need to go shortly, so I was wondering, you were going to share with us.
Yeah.
I know that I'm changing topics quickly, but I just noticed the time. You were going to share with us a few things about Hippolytus?
Oh yeah, just a few things from my experience.
Do you mind about traveling there?
A little driving trip.
You must.
To see the sanctuary of Hippolytus. Let me figure out how I can share my screen here. That's not that one. Oh, there we go. So I would like to share. Okay. Can you see a map?
Yeah.
There it is. Yes.
Great. So there's Athens up in the corner. There's Corinth off to the left. And at the bottom, I put a pin in the shrine of Hippolytus. It says.
Wow. Can an Uber get there? No.
Probably not. It's way out on the end of this peninsula. And I'm zooming in here in this next little map just so you can see. It's right on the edge of a mountain. And can you see the cursor, the arrow?
Yes.
That I'm moving? I wonder if this is the beach where we're to imagine Hippolytus is racing Venetian steeds. I mean, I don't know how much the audience of Athens, Athenian tragedies, is supposed to have known about the geography of
that is definitely it, and you can even see the spit. You can see that spit on there. Yeah, there.
Oh yeah.
That's the primal place. Yeah.
Oh, there, so Poseidon.
The bull from the sea comes somewhere over there and spooks the horses that are pulling the chariot of Hippolytus as he's driving at breakneck speed up and down that beach.
Wow. So it's right there.
Wow.
And let's see, zooming in a little bit more and the satellite view. Here's the foundations of the shrine of Hippolytus.
And Pausanias describes it.
Mm-hmm. Here's a sleep sanctuary. The foundations here are left. This, I think, is just some city walls and a much later Christian cathedral. This was a bishop's church here. And here you can see in the very corner a little mark across the path. That's the gate to
yes. There it is.
Looking a little forlorn. I included a couple of extra pictures here at the last minute. It was a beautiful day. This is that forsaken road at the end of the peninsula.
Oh wow!
Very dangerous, careening along. Weaving in and out. Not weaving. I wasn't weaving, but the road itself. As it follows the mountains, it weaves back and forth.
How beautiful!
And just a little flavor here. Apparently lemons is what they grow here around Troezen, around Troezen. So as I was coming up this country road, there was no one. So don't worry, I was not endangering my health too much by taking a picture while I was driving, but just some lemons. And then here just a couple of shots of the site. Here's the sanctuary of Hippolytus, the foundations.
Wow.
Right up against the mountain.
Wait, you got to stop there. You got to stop there. This is what the end of the Hippolytus is all about, where Artemis herself predicts that there will be rituals of singing and dancing in honor of Hippolytus, and and this is where it happened.
Yeah. I mean, and Troezen. I'm scrolling back up. It's right here. This little village. I mean, currently it's a little village. I don't know how big it was then. It's just right up this. Well, it's not a street. It's a road.
It's amazing.
Let's see. Hippolytus' sanctuary in another view, and this is a shot of the temple of Asclepius.
Nice.
There's all these interesting little waterways that I don't understand quite, but in any case, and a few more lemons at the end. I stayed as long as I could, taking pictures. And,
what a treat! What a treat!
Communing with Hippolytus.
Yes, so those of you who are reading the Hippolytus of Euripides, this sacred space that Keith visited and that I've never visited and Claudia has never visited is what is then described by that great traveler Pausanias in the 2nd century CE. So that's well over half a millennium later. But all the important monuments were still there when Pausanias was there. Now, what Keith saw were simply the foundations of monuments, but at least you saw the foundations. You saw where the hero cult of let's try that again. The hero cult of Hippolytus was a functional place in the days of Euripides already, and to me that's just a wonder. And I'm so grateful that you showed us your experience. For me, this is the first time that I saw Keith's pictures. I knew he went there. I was worried about whether he'd have a car accident because he actually rented a car and did it all himself. But he's back to tell the tale.
Yeah, it was quite an adventure.
I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting, just to kind of bring the conversation full circle before we sign off, is the way that the death of Hippolytus really, I mean, his corpse is just totally mangled, right? I mean, this is not a pretty scene at the end. So that's interesting. And I think also I'm wondering about just the idea of the extreme nature of the hero and whether maybe when we think about the body of the hero, maybe your idea, Greg, that the hero is extreme in both positive and negative ways. I mean, maybe that helps us to understand this aspect.
Oh yeah, and here we do have the wonderful testimony of Pausanias, and I bring it in when I discuss this drama, the Hippolytus, and the ancient Greek hero in 24 Hours, where Pausanias actually tells us something that is not in the drama, but we know not only from Pausanias but from other sources. And I'll just stick to what Pausanias says. He says that the divine force, or let's say the superhuman force that then brought the dead Hippolytus back to life, the force that resurrected Hippolytus was Asclepius. And Asclepius is a hero who is worshipped also in Troezen, or Troezenia, as it's called in modern Greek. And there's a little bit of documentation of that in my book, Ancient Greek Hero in 24 Hours. But we're going to see more about Asclepius when we get to Plato, because it turns out that Socrates himself has a special relationship with this hero who then is kind of a quasi-god. Why? Because during his heroic life, he actually brought Hippolytus back to life. He resurrected Hippolytus and presumably other heroes as well.
Okay, that is awesome. So, I think we should probably sign off for now, unless, Keith, you had another thought you wanted to add, which is absolutely welcome, as always. Okay.
Well, I think Keith really nailed it, and we should do this more often, where Keith shows us, and you, dear Claudia, show us visuals. I thought this was
great. Yes.
Office hours for me, anyway. I loved it.
We could put it on the agenda not only for our other office hours through V5, but perhaps other versions of the project. So thank you to both of you for joining us for office hours. I hope our participants have found something useful here. I know I enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to our, not quite our last session, but our next to last session in our next office hours.
There'll never be a last session.
Good point. Yes, good point. We'll always be here.
And could I just say I'm so grateful to the readers out there who responded to these very difficult questions that I asked. And you could tell these are questions that are still bothering me now, and you helped me sort things out, and I hope that all of you sorted things out further yourselves.
Thank you, Greg, and we'll look forward to your next discussion questions in the upcoming hour on Wednesday.
I'm looking forward too.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.